We are talking with Scott Kelm from 610sports.com, previewing Week 15 here in the NFL. I am calling in remotely from New York City, and now we got three games that I asked you to talk about. There are three. I asked you about them because they're very interesting lines. I'm wondering if there might be any value with any side. First one I want to ask about is Detroit at Oakland. Now, I think this opened at about pick'em. Now Oakland's about a small underdog, +1. Detroit typically is very good against teams with losing records. They're bad against good teams, but looking at how Oakland's done the past two games, even though they have a winning record on the year, maybe they count as a terrible team right now. They've got two straight blowouts. Darren McFadden's still nursing the injured foot, so that's obviously hurting them. I'm thinking Detroit -1 might be a good play here. What do you think?
I like Oakland in the game, actually. I don't have a lot of respect for Detroit. Quite frankly, I don't know that they've done a whole lot this year, especially when you start to look at them on the road. They were blown out in the last two games at Chicago and at New Orleans. And to be fair to them, I guess to a degree at Chicago, they actually, from a statistical standpoint, dominated that game. They just had 6 or 7 turnovers that just completely did them in. But they were blown out in both those games. Obviously, Oakland's not New Orleans. I get that. But they've allowed at least 23 points in 4 of their 5 road games this year. Their first game against Tampa, who we now know is not very good, they allowed 20. So they're giving up a bunch of points. Oakland has scored at least 19 in all but one home game this year, and that was the game Kyle Bowler started where they were shut out by Kansas City. I had Kansas City in that game. But with Carson Palmer at home, they've scored at least 24 in their last in the 2 home games that they played that he's started for them. And it looks like they're going to get Denarius Moore back this week, which I think will be a huge upgrade for him. They could certainly use McFadden. Bush is very good, but he's not nearly as dynamic as McFadden is. But I think against Detroit, they could be okay with Bush. And again, getting Moore back, I think, will help them a lot. I make the number 1 in favor of Detroit, so I think the line is fair. But Oakland qualifies in some nice situations this week. One of them is a home dog situation that's 53-22-1 that plays on home teams, home dogs that gave up 40 or more points last week. So the fact that they were blown out and gave up a whole bunch of points actually works in their favor this week. And then they also qualify in a couple other home dog situations that are 88-42-4 and 40-15-2. Both of those situations are late season home dog situations. And one of those situations plays on teams that are coming home that lost by 14 or more points last week. So the fact they got blown out actually might help them a little bit. And then, when you look at that, I think the matchup's favorable for them because Detroit is still not playing that well on the road. Oakland's a better team at home. And I trust Carson Palmer as a quarterback. He's had some problems, obviously. We know that. But I think at home, especially getting more back, I think Oakland's in a great spot here to win this game.